Our first speaker talks about these people and the topic of game changers in this segment. So without further ado, I would love to introduce our first speaker. He is India's most watched and innovative journalist. He has revolutionized new presentation and production on TV, and in the process has taken the brands he is associated with, Times Now, and his shows The News Hour and Frankly Speaking, to astounding and consistent leadership. For the last few years, India's leading publications like India Today and Indian Express have rated him India's most influential representative of the Fourth Estate. Educated at Delhi and Oxford, he has been a fellow at Cambridge University and believes that with technology bringing the world closer together, India will very soon be a global media hub and give global new brands stiff competition. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. To dwell on the theme, News for a New India, please put your hands together for Editorial Director and Editor-in-Chief, Times Now, Mr. Arnab Goswami. And just to let you know, our moderator for the Q&A post Mr. Goswami's session is none other than Padma Shri Prasoon Joshi. So stick around. All yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Ross. Thank you for coming. By Friday morning, it's Friday morning in Goa. By Friday morning, I have enough of myself. I'm flattered that you're all here because I'm not allowed to speak at home and switch on the TV on Saturdays. I'm really flattered. There must be something we are doing right. Thank you for coming. I am here before you today not to defend myself or the journalism we do. I actually want to plead guilty today before you. There's a lot that people say about what we do, and I won't defend myself against it. I will rather plead guilty to everything that people say against us, but I will tell you why we do it. So I don't want to get into rationalizing whether I'm right or someone else is wrong. I'm here to talk about why we do what we do, why I do what I do, why I believe in the journalism that we do, why I think that the journalism we do as opposed to the journalism others do. And I don't mince my words. I don't say we are a variant of their journalism. We are a new journalism, and there is an old journalism in this country. There is a relevant journalism in the country, and there is an irrelevant journalism in this country. There's a journalism that people relate to, that people watch, that people respond to. A journalism that people say represents our voice, our aspirations, our questions. And a journalism that has lost its faith among the people it is supposed to broadcast and reach. So I won't mince my words today. Should I mince my words, ladies and gentlemen? You want me to soften up? Or you want me to do a frank talk, frankly speaking with you? Yeah? Okay. Now, this is what usually happens. You see, you set me up out here. And I know what you're thinking. Okay, to the gentleman out there, I have something to say to you. I remember going for my first job in a TV channel, sir, 19 years back. And the first thing I stood up, I went up the stairs, we were taken through an orientation. The first thing I was told is, never express your opinion. Never, ever express your opinion. Because the day you express your opinion, it'll be bad journalism. I don't know who taught me, he was a very bad teacher. So are you going to do this throughout for the next 1 hour? Sir, the journalism I follow is a journalism of opinion. It is a journalism of taking a stand. It is a journalism not of political correctness. It is not a journalism that advocates fence-sitting in any measure. It is certainly not a journalism that believes in this fake philosophy that stating your opinion violates some long-held journalistic norms of neutrality. And I will tell you my stories today, and I will build my case, and then we can have a conversation on it. There is a lot that I find wrong in this country. There is corruption, there is injustice, there is a social chasm between the haves and the have-nots. There are people who divide us on the basis of religion. There are people who divide us on the basis of caste, of region. And now, if you see, there are people who want to divide us on the basis of the food that we eat. In that perspective, when there is a choice that a journalist has between what is right and what is wrong, between what is black and what is white, when facts stare you in the face, will you be a fence sitter, is my question. That's the fundamental question today that we have to address. I don't believe that a good journalist can say that because I want to be neutral, I will not take a position between what is right and wrong and black and white and corrupt and honest. Because when facts stare you in the face, a journalist has to speak up. I don't therefore believe in the Wikipedia definition of neutrality when it comes to journalism. Those who implement it are not really being true to their cause. Neutrality, when there is something wrong, is a weakness. It becomes a weakness because it perpetuates a status quo. And as I give you examples of the work that I have done, you will understand why I'm saying this. Neutrality becomes a weakness then because it has no impact. Kalmadi would not go if we were neutral about the CWG scam. We were not. And there's nothing to be embarrassed about it. Neutrality of that kind, when a great injustice happens before you, when people die, when some are denied their rights, when some are persecuted, when some are killed and harassed, when a Nirbhaya happens, or when an India Against Corruption movement happens, at that time, if you say, I'm going to be thoroughly neutral about it, then I'm sorry to have to say this, then journalism becomes an exercise in futility. Because that journalism has no impact. And I don't believe in the journalism of no impact. That is a self-serving journalism. That is not a journalism that reaches out to the people of this vast country. And that's why I began my premise by saying today, I will plead guilty to the 6 or 7 things that are said about my journalism. I pit this journalism against that, the relevant journalism against those I believe are not relevant. And we can then argue the case. My first point, ladies and gentlemen, which I plead guilty to, is that of playing stories up. I'm told very often, you play things up too much. What some people say, you sensationalize. It's become a common term nowadays. Of course, if you ask V.K. Singh or Suresh Kalmadi, they'll say you're all sensationalist. So we are told we play stories up. I take you back to 2006. We had just launched Times Now as a channel. And I got a call at home saying that there is a story which is going on in some newspapers and some channels have picked it up, and there's a 6-year-old boy who has fallen into an abandoned bore well in Haryana in Kurukshetra. Even today, when people talk about good and bad journalism, they talk about the story of Prince as bad journalism. I thoroughly disagree with them. They don't understand the pulse of this country at all. Prince was not bad journalism. Because when all the OB vans and the entire media landed up in January 2006, or I think February 2006, they all landed up in Kurukshetra. I don't know if you remember. I remember those pictures graphically. In my mind, they are imprinted, and I will never till my last day forget them. I will not forget the images of the bore well, the X-ray kind of images which were emerging. And at the bottom of that bore well, 60 feet below the ground, 60 feet below the ground, the son of a daily wager is fighting for his life 2 days before his birthday. And the whole country was watching this. I don't know if you remember this all. When we started covering, everyone started covering. Before that, you see, there were some English channels which said, this is a Hindi channel kind of story. Let's not touch it. What is a Hindi channel story? A story is a story. And what was the story of Prince about? it was not just that a boy had fallen into a manhole and whether he would survive or not. The story of Prince was a story of apathy. It was a story of absolute recklessness in terms of governance, that nobody covers up the bowel. That bowel was supposed to be covered up by somebody in government. Had a minister's child fallen, or a tycoon's child fallen, or a bureaucrat's child fallen, they would have learnt their lesson. But it is true in our country that children of poor people die every day like this. We made it a case study. And I remember the day when we split the screen because it's agonizing, and I'm a parent. As a parent, I watched someone there a little few years older than my own son. And I asked myself, what if someone we knew and loved, their child had been inside? How would we have reacted? Would we have said, move on to some ribbon cutting ceremony? We covered it for 2 days, 3 days. And those of you who remember would remember that moment when this boy came out alive. And the entire government machinery was around out there. The GOC&C of the army, local member of parliament, Mr. Naveen Jindal, Congress, BJP, Akali Dal, Indian National Lok Dal, everybody was vying to save Prince. Had the media not been there, Prince would not have come out. He was saved in the nick of time. I remember our entire newsroom was crying when at 6:35 p.m., and I remember this was, I'm sorry about the dates, I remember now it was around July 20th, 2006, if someone can search the archives. When that boy came out alive, our newsroom was in tears that day. And for the 2 days before that, people from Kolkata, Trichy, Guwahati, everyone were calling and giving instructions. Some engineer would call and say that, I have a way of getting this boy out. Don't do this because then there will be a mudslide. The boy, it'll cave. It was a very delicate operation. Why did the whole country watch the story of Prince? I'm asking this question to you. You know why? Because we sensationalized it. And if this is sensationalism, if this is not journalism, then I challenge that form of journalism which says that making an apathy of a young child or the trauma of a helpless family, giving voice to them, is not journalism, then I challenge those journalists who question this journalism. Journalism has never been the same again. If you look at what has been happening in the last 8 or 9 years, close your eyes, ladies and gentlemen. Remember the journalism of 2005. And then remember the journalism of 2015. The only change is today, if a child falls into a borewell, you won't need a media to reach there. They are so scared of the media, they will land there and do their job before that. That's impact, ladies and gentlemen. I plead guilty, therefore, to the first charge of playing stories up. Now, I also plead guilty to trying to become an activist. That's the second big charge against me. Are you a journalist or an activist? Or against this journalism? This is not journalism. This is not neutral. Journalism you have to learn from the BBC. You have to be inanimate about it, to be neutral about it. It's like if there was a chemistry experiment, journalism should have a pH of 7, not even 7.1 or 6.9. It's ridiculous. So I plead guilty to the second charge today. My second charge, my rivals, though I strongly believe I don't have any left. And ladies and gentlemen, that man set me up. I would only say this. The second point today is, why do you close the line between journalism and activism? Why do you relentlessly go after one story? Why don't you give other stories equal space while you're following one story? And as far as this example is concerned, this charge, I want to give you another example. And my second example on why we need to do activist journalism in our country on appropriate issues, not political issues, but on social issues, comes from an example that happened 1 year before Nirbhaya happened. You see, in our country, when things happen in metros, they get attention. When things happen in smaller cities or villages, we often disregard them or we don't notice them. So in a place called Banda in Uttar Pradesh, just around the time of Christmas in 2011, we were sitting around, and a news story comes before us that a 16-year-old girl has been raped by the local Bahujan Samajwadi Party MLA. The girl goes to the police station and she says that I have been raped and I want to file a case against the MLA in whose house I was working. The police officer calls up the MLA and his relatives, informs him, takes the girl aside, files 6 charges against her and puts her in lockup. 1 year before Nirbhaya, ladies and gentlemen, this is the case of Banda in Lakhimpur Kheri in Uttar Pradesh, where a 16-year-old brave girl, raped by an MLA, goes to a police station, is put in lockup. Nobody bothered about the story. Relentlessly, for almost 11 days non-stop, between late December and early January 2012, there was only one story dominating on our channel, followed up by the other channels, because there is a trickle-down effect in our business as well. This man went absconding. Mayawati says, I don't know where he is. Relentlessly, the pressure did not stop. Hindi channels, English channels went after this man. And eventually, this man came out and he was put in lockup. Now, my question to you in the audience is this. Consider this. And the story does not end there. This girl comes out and she gets emboldened. She feels stronger about the fact that she had media support. She files a case against the MLA. She pursues it in court. Not just that, she forms a self-help group called the Nagin Group, and these young girls wear black. She leads her own group, and she goes from village to village and town to help other rape victims and victims of sexual harassment. 1 year before Nirbhaya, ladies and gentlemen. 1 year before Nirbhaya. Now, my second question, therefore, is, if I had been inanimate about this story, if I would have put this story in a different hierarchy of news, if 5 of my 6 headlines had not been on this story, then trust me, Mayawati would not have got that MLA in jail. It is only in this country when you are shamed and embarrassed, when you are named and you are called, and when you are told, watch out, because we are going to go after you if you continue like this, only in those circumstances do very powerful people who carry out the greatest injustice in this country ever respond. And that, in my view, is a fulcrum of the role of the media today. If that is activism, I plead guilty, ladies and gentlemen, to being an activist in journalism. But if you don't carry any passion in journalism or any job you do, you might as well not do it. We live short lives. We have short professional careers. We make a choice why we want to do it. Our choice genuinely is to bring idealism back into this profession. The third thing I want to plead guilty for is of becoming too involved in a story as it progresses. The people say the more involved you get in a story, the greater the propensity to make mistakes or to take sides. Now, somewhere around June 2011, we broke a small story. It was about an accounting error of a group of Indians who had gone to the UK. And it came out the Indians had spent a lot of money. Now in UK, the revenue department tracks funds where they are coming from, to whom they are going to, so that there is no underhand dealing. So we got some papers, this was from Her Majesty's Department, British government, that a bunch of Indians had gone and there was an accounting error of 275,000 pounds, British pounds. We went into the story and we put a story up. The next morning, a person called Suresh Kalmadi did a press conference. And I sat in my office in Lower Parel, and somebody said that, boss, we've got Suresh Kalmadi reacting to your story. And I sat there transfixed. A clip of that press conference was shown in the AV just we put before you. A small clip. Suresh Kalmadi in that press conference went on and on and on about how this was absolutely ridiculous and how he was going to file a defamation case against Times Now. Every time a Times Now reporter would speak, Suresh Kalmadi would say, keep quiet, this is not the news hour, this is not Times Now. And he was just overreacting. I started getting some calls from a lot of people, including, if I may say so candidly today, a person I admire and love, Vinod Mehta. So Vinod called me and he said, Arnab, are you watching this damn press conference? I said, yes. He said, what have you done? I said, I don't know. What's going on? I said, I have no idea. Vinod told me, dig deeper. There must be some reason. So we went back and we asked ourselves as a team, if the scam was only 275,000 British pounds, would the head of the organizing committee of the Commonwealth Games, big Congress leader, infallible, indestructible Suresh Kalmadi be doing a press conference? And the answer was no. Our journalistic and human instinct was to dig deeper. It took us almost 1 week after that to cut through the papers, connect the dots, reach the firms where the money was routed to. And what happened a week later was what will go down in history as the Commonwealth Games 70,000 crore rupees scam. Pure scam of 3,000 crores on a budget of 70,000 crores. Man in charge, Suresh Kalmadi. The question we asked ourselves was, if these people have this much money and they are making a margin of 40% on the money they spent in UK, if they have even 10% margin on the bigger money, they would be making a hell of a lot of money. We got so involved in the story. I can tell you we didn't sleep or eat. We went after the story. We sent reporters down to the UK. There was nothing going on in our office but the Commonwealth Games scam. And after that, if you remember, like a torrent, all the scams came. The Devas ISRO scam, the Aircel Maxis scam 5 months later, the 2G scam 3 months later, personal intimidation at that point of time by A. Raja on our reporters, the Adarsh Kargil for Profit scam, you saw a clip of it. Ashok Chavan's resignation, called me half an hour before the news hour saying, pull back the story. I said, Mr. Chavan, the story is like a bullet. You fire it, it's going to reach its target. I'm sorry if you think the target is you. All these scams broke in a 6-month period. 7 of the biggest scams in our country. I got involved because I remember where I came from. Because when I began my career in 1995, 96, I used to stand with a mic outside the 30,000 courts. In the hot summer of Delhi, you stand like a mic and convicted politician, after convicted politician, not convicted, charge sheeted, being questioned inside. And we were the first bunch of TV reporters in this country. We stood with our mics outside. And we used to go to the politician and say, sir, what do you have to say? We were beaten by their security guards. We were treated like dirt. We were kicked around. And let me tell you, once when I asked a question to the law minister of this country, I was asked to go back and apologize to him for asking the question, for having the temerity to ask the union law minister a question. The media did not have the courage it has today. They did not take on politicians in 95. What we saw between 2011 and 2012, ladies and gentlemen, was a magical moment in Indian journalism. Journalism will never be the same again. They may question you, they may call you names, they may troll you on the social media, but journalism is not the same again. It has given birth to this journalism. So I'm saying tonight, when I went after that in January 2012, and Manmohan Singh called a press conference, I'm coming to the critical issue. Manmohan Singh called a press conference. It was a news event, not because of the press conference, but because Manmohan Singh decided to speak. So I called a couple of my colleagues. I said, I'm not used to giving a chance for one question, you see. So my colleagues had a meeting that morning and they said that, you know, our editor is going to a Prime Minister's press conference. I had never been to a PM press conference because when I left Delhi, I was just another reporter. I didn't have the stature, ladies and gentlemen, to be called to the PM's press conference. So my reporters, I asked them, what should I do, man? I have one shot at a question. I said, the biggest people in Indian journalism are sitting there. So one of my colleagues said, don't think, just be yourself, do what you want to do. Ask that one question in your own way. There were 14 of us. I was the unfortunate 13th. There was a ring around me of the PM's press advisors, almost as if I was a culprit in that room. What worried me greatly was that all these biggest names of Indian journalism did not ask a question about the scams. There was one person 2 questions before me who asked the Prime Minister, Mr. Prime Minister, what is your message for Sachin Tendulkar? He just scored a century or something. And Manmohan Singh looked at the editor dumbfounded but extremely pleased. Oh, why? I didn't get into this business to do PR. I joined a newspaper called The Telegraph. There was a time in my career I needed to earn a little more money. And I went to Delhi. And I stood outside a big building that looked very swanky. I said, I've got my CV in my hand. It was a PR office. I won't name the company. I went in. They went in and they said, we give you a job. I came out and I said, if I do PR today, I'll do that for the rest of my life, but I want to be a journalist. But what I saw in that room that day, when the Prime Minister was being asked questions, was something, a very worrying trend in Indian journalism. I have seen the media of other countries where freedoms are far more restricted, where journalists exercise their freedom with far more passion. I don't believe in the journalism of the cocktail circuit, ladies and gentlemen. We should not be part of the cocktail circuit. We are not a self-serving group. We are not here to be gratified. We are not here to be called on big events or fly with the Prime Minister or dine with ministers. Because the day you do that, somewhere you lose your own independence. So my third point, which I plead very guilty to, ladies and gentlemen, is of becoming very involved in the story. And my team too gets very involved in the story. And we become involved because we have no other affiliations. Come to my newsroom. See my 27-year-old news editor. See the sense of freedom and independence he has. When he does not have to ask his editor, sir, this story goes against this interest, can I do it? This story goes against that interest, can I do it? And people ask me, why did you break most of the scams in that period, 2011-12? Are you a great investigative journalist? Certainly I'm not. But then the problem very often is that the editors decide not to carry the stories. You filter the stories go to everyone, the question is who carries them. We brought back a sense of independence, courage and guts in the journalistic profession. We stand up for it. See, sir, I know that when you do your work from the bottom of your heart, you'll get lots of positives and negatives, The only thing, before I continue, that I'll say just one thing to you. I do my work honestly and with integrity. And you will, and one day, I tell myself that 10 years, 15 years from now, you should know that you did something that was good for your country. That's my only agenda. I'm an honest journalist. My fourth point I want to plead guilty to, and tell me when to stop, because I have a propensity of going on for 2.5 hours every night. MK knows that. I do the longest 1-hour show in the world. My fourth confession is that I don't listen to the other side equally enough. It's often said to me, I go to airports, railway stations, everyone says, you don't let the other side speak. Now, there was one day when I let someone else speak. The person was Rahul Gandhi. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I have never spoken of the Rahul Gandhi interview since I did it. And people have asked me why. I said there's not much that remains to be said. But it was an important moment, I believe, in my own growth as a journalist, because, and in Indian media as well, I think. See, before the interview, Rahul Gandhi was like a submarine. He would come up occasionally and go down again. I believe he still is. I don't know where he is. Rahul, wherever you are, we're looking for you. I give you credit. You've beaten the best of my investigative reporters. So, Rahul had this moment of breaking into a Congress press conference, tearing up an ordinance passed by a cabinet, rejecting it. Then again, he went underwater. Then he came up again. So before this interview, I was trying to ask myself, what is Rahul going to talk about? Very quickly into the interview, I noticed that there was a trend in his answers. And this was written about later. No matter what you asked Rahul, he came prepared with a script in his head. And I read a BBC article which came in later about the interview that noted the following, and I'm quoting someone else, it's not my words. He used the words empower and empowerment interchangeably 22 times. He mentioned the word system, the existing one, which is broken, and the need to change it 70 times. He mentioned women and their key roles 17 times. But most found it very odd that he spoke about himself in the third person 7 times. Now that Rahul Gandhi interview was a very important moment because it sent out a message that the gentleman wasn't totally ready, and Mr. Modi used that to his advantage. Now, what was the importance? It set the tone for a general election. I remember that was the time when the Rahul Gandhi campaign was building up. And sorry if there are people who handled this campaign in this room, but it was just beginning to build up. Nobody knew the interview was happening. And in a way, it set the tone to the election. You cut through the chaff, and it became a personality election like never before. If there's someone who brought a personality election into this country, it must be said it is Rahul Gandhi more than Narendra Modi. But more than anything else, the impact of the media, right? The contribution of the media to the overall discussion. And the climate that it created for an open and healthy discussion between different participants in an open platform where the media came in between was, I think, very, very important. It didn't happen in 2009. It didn't happen in 2004. It didn't happen in 99. It didn't happen in 98. Politics was opaque. 2014, television made politics transparent. It brought it aggressively into your drawing rooms. You were part of the discussion. You participated, whether you realize or not, more passionately in this election than in any election before that. I think that was a great celebration of our democracy. Now to my next confession, which is that I very often don't cover, and we don't cover the news in the way other mainstream media does. And I plead guilty to that. We don't take the same headlines. We don't have the same lines. And I'll tell you one moment which made me realize that the journalism I was doing wrong had fallen into the trap of following the rest of the mainstream media. Now, there's a person called Sanjay Dutt who made it his occupation to go in and out of jail many times between 2008 and 2007. So Sanjay Dutt was going to jail again, and he was being taken from Arthur Road prison to Pune. And there was a huge contingent of television media following him. Live view units had just come in. There were car chases going on. And the entire Sanjay Dutt and his police van waving occasionally at the media, short of helicopters, everything was used to cover Sanjay Dutt's terrific ride to prison. Non-stop moment. There was no other coverage on that afternoon. We too were part of the chase. We too had put our cameras, and very often camera persons would come and say, I've got an exclusive with Sanjay Dutt. I said, what is the exclusive? How did you manage to get it? And what did he say? He said, Sanjay Dutt came, he waved out, and he said, I have full faith in the judiciary. I said, wonderful. Now, I came back to my room, and I was having lunch, and I got a call from someone that day. And the person I did not know called me, and he said, is that Mr. Goswami? I said, yes. He said, I've followed your career for a long time. I've followed your channel. I've followed you in your earlier job and now. But I'm calling to say I'm never going to watch you again after today. I was totally stunned. I said, where are you? Who are you? And where are you calling from? He said, I'll tell you that later. I'm calling from Bangalore. And then he told me, I said, why will you not watch me again? He said, because my best friend died today. And my best friend was a person called Colonel Vasant Venugopal. Of the 9 Maratha Light Infantry, the senior most officer, to die in the line of duty from the city of Bangalore. 42 years old. I have the story before me. If you allow me, I'll just tell you the story of Vasant Venugopal, because something has changed my entire approach to journalism. It is Vasant. This is the news report, ladies and gentlemen, July 2007. Troops of the 9 Maratha Light Infantry spotted a group of heavily armed infiltrators near Ghode Tal, 15 kilometers north of Uri town. Terrorists, on being detected, failed to escape towards the Pakistani side of the LOC. Troop occupied dominating positions and prevented the infiltrated terrorists to escape. Colonel Vasant Venugopal, commanding officer 9 Maratha Light Infantry, along with reinforcements, personally rushed to the site to personally supervise the operation. Under the determined leadership and resolute leadership of Colonel Vasant Venugopal, the troops in a deft move surrounded the terrorists in difficult and thickly wooded forested area. Heavy firefight ensued. Colonel Vasant Venugopal personally flushed out all the terrorists. Displaying cool courage and operational acumen, Colonel Vasant Venugopal poised himself and his party to block the escape routes of the entrapped terrorists. Despite being severely wounded, he moved swiftly closer to the hiding place of the terrorists and led a fierce encounter from close quarters. With little care for his personal safety, this daring commanding officer of the 9 Maratha Light Infantry, leading from the front, gunned down the entrapped militants. In a point-blank, face-to-face exchange of a very heavy volume of fire, Colonel Vasant Venugopal, Lance Nayak Ganpat, and Lance Havaldar Ramanna were injured. 4 terrorists were killed. Colonel Vasant Venugopal and Lance Nayak Bachav Ganapat succumbed to injuries in the hospital. This gentleman told me that when Colonel Vasant Venugopal's body was brought and he was being cremated with full military honors, there was not a single camera present except Doordarshan. I had nothing to tell him. Nothing to tell him. Here I was covering Sanjay Dutt. And sometimes the stark reality of what you're doing wrong comes and hits you. And we were covering that, and this call came. And I'm an army officer's son. My sister is in the Indian Air Force. My brother-in-law is an army officer. My uncles are in the military. And this is what I was doing. 2007. People asked me, why do you get so involved during 26/11 or not? Why did you cover it for 4 days? Why did you drop all ads? Somewhere these things influence your mind. But the story doesn't end here. With a deep sense of guilt, that evening, I told this gentleman, come on the news hour tonight, I want to talk to you. And at 9 o'clock, I placed this before any other coverage, and I was waiting to have a chat with this gentleman from Bangalore about his friend. So 30 seconds before going live, I asked the producer, is the gentleman there? And my producer said, she's there. I said, she? But I spoke to his friend. He said, no, his wife has decided to come on your program. What do you ask someone who's cremated her husband 4 hours back? Why was she coming on my program? What did she want to say? And what would I ask? I've never been in as much of a mental quandary as in that moment. That day shook me up. It just, you realize sometimes you are not in this for just being successful in a personal way. So those people who think I'm doing this to be successful, put yourself in my position, take it on the chin, face the pressure, take the risks. There has to be a bigger reason than your personal glory. Subhashini came and spoke that day, and I asked her maybe a couple of questions. I'm still in touch with her. The army chief called after that and said that, can I meet her? J.J. Singh asked me, can you come to Delhi? I met him. Can I meet this brave lady? And now she runs a big campaign there to help all martyrs' families. She's emboldened. She was our speaker at the Amazing Indians Awards last year. So, ladies and gentlemen, when people tell me that you are not doing what is news, I ask them, what is news? What is news? What we were doing was not news. What we are doing now, to some extent, is news. And it is changing and it is getting better. What is neutrality? Whose purpose does it serve? I'll end with one example, because I go back to this question of neutrality. I am neutral, but I am not a fence sitter. How can you be neutral? First example I'll give you, when an honest IAS officer called D.K. Ravi dies under most mysterious circumstances, before the autopsy is completed, the Bangalore police says it's a case of suicide. The chief minister lands in when the postmortem is happening. There are selective leaks about the officer's personal life, prejudicing the case, and you want to tell me to be neutral? What is this neutrality? How can you be neutral when a state government of an elected democracy floats a personal angle to his death, vilifying people even before the case is out? How can you be neutral when Sunanda Pushkar dies in the most mysterious circumstances? And for 1 year, the Delhi police does absolutely nothing. They're responding now. It is because of our pressure, ladies and gentlemen. Who tells me what is neutrality? Have I lost my intelligence, my ability to sift between right and wrong? Or why should I do that? How can you be neutral when in Tamil Nadu, 2 weeks back, there is an officer, a government engineer called Muthu Kumaraswamy, right, who gives 7 people a job but does not take a bribe, and the minister's office tells him, where is the bribe, the 14 lakhs? And the man already has taken a 14 lakh rupee loan. He's paying 13,000 rupees a day. The man kills himself because he's unable to pay the minister's office a bribe. You want to tell me to be neutral about it? You want me to speak in soft undertones? You want me not to play things up? I ask you today, if that is neutrality, this is the time, ladies and gentlemen, to question that neutrality. If that is the media we have had and lived with, this is the time to change that media. There is no better time. The time to change that media has come. We are changing that media. So, setting power centers if required. We will expose and relentlessly follow stories of corruption. We will reflect our obligation to society and to our country at the risk of being called ultra-nationalists. We will not hide behind a veneer of neutrality. This is the journalism that I am fighting for, because our country is changing. Generations are changing. Mindsets are changing. The status quo must change, including in this great profession, which I'm so proud to be a member of, which is called journalism. Thank you very much. Thank you.